Today we're back with my interview with Rage, the creator of Skylark. Skylark is an epic fantasy action series about two brothers who embark on a quest to places they've never seen, guided by a map they can't read, and no skills to rely on. Certainly, a recipe for success. We're going to talk about topics like how video games influence his story, what the writing process is like for this fantasy adventure, and all kinds of art and comic advice. So stay tuned and relax. Let's talk about your comic.
Yes.
So I really wanted to hear more about like the RPG or like the game influence in your comic more particularly, because I noticed a lot when I was reading through it. Like I could really feel those vibes.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for reading, by the way. I try to always say that. I don't know why. It feels right. Like I said, like I was talking about before, sort of fantasy games, role-playing games sort of opened my mind a little bit to the way I interacted and thought about stories. Mm-hmm. But it was really when I was 19 or 20, and I started playing Dungeons and Dragons. And just the way the way in which that game works, the level of a game that is pure roleplay, in which not only you can pretty much do anything, but everyone around you also does whatever they want, and everyone has to deal with what everyone else is doing. That ability to improvise within that type of world sort of opened my mind to fantasy can be just so much more than people give it credit for, or some people just don't acknowledge just the potential. Fantasy is not a genre, it's a setting, and even then it doesn't have to, like, fantasy can really be anything. And it also showed me just the intricacies, all the little things that can go into a story, from that little interaction that you have with a absolutely unimportant NPC that suddenly your game master decides to turn into this big weird story because one of your party members decided to, I don't know, stab him in the back or anything. Like, it just showed me that stories could be so much more in every way. The idea that you don't have to, I'm sure there would have been other ways to learn this, but it really firsthand demonstrated that a story doesn't have to conform to a set of tropes or genre, that you can have a story that's an action adventure story that can take turns into other genres. Like, you can have moments of horror and then switch to mystery, and you can still feel like a cohesive story. And I started to think about all this stuff just because of playing role-playing games, just any RPG from Dungeons and Dragons. Just every time I look at a game, even if I know that I'm playing something like Doom, and I'm just mowing through hordes of demons, sometimes I will look at a demon and the possibilities just start popping into my head. Like, all the things this demon could be, and I just don't know about it. Like, if this was an RPG, could I figure out what this demon really is about? Could I figure out what he's hiding? Is there more to this NPC guy? And then you punch him in the face and he explodes. But the thought process, that thought process already in your brain, like, you already, and the more you experiment with it, the better you get at it. And because I was shown this side of RPGs, I would say a crucial point in writing the story, it really influenced how I viewed writing. Mm-hmm. Because it was the first time I was actually writing like a full-on story, and not just a page full of plot points. So how did RPGs influence this story? They made the story pretty much. If it wasn't for RPGs, I don't know how my writing would look like. I don't know what type of writing I would be doing, honestly. And let me tell you, the playing game master or dungeon master, like making your own Dungeons and Dragons game. Mm-hmm. What a good way to learn improv, and what a good way to practice storytelling.
Yeah, and acting and stuff too.
Oh yeah, that's what made me start just randomly making weird voices. It's not just the nerves, but part of it.
I randomly do weird voices too, but it's just me.
Like my go-to song, like this. Yeah, like just I just suddenly just go like this. I just feel since I can't look at people's faces most of the time, emoting with my voice it makes what I'm saying more dramatic and impactful, and I like that.
Definitely, that is something that I can relate to being on the internet. You gotta find your weird ways to like express yourself, you know?
Yeah,
you don't sound like a serial killer.
Yeah, if not, you're just a voice on a profile picture, and sometimes you're just the profile picture. So
yeah, it was really nice hearing you talk about fantasy too, and how like expansive it is. Because I think deep down at the core, my story is definitely a fantasy, but I have it tagged as supernatural right now because of meta reasons, even though I think it's a fantasy. But I really relate to that too, like how expansive things can be.
Yeah, it's playing with genre and theme and setting like that. It's a thing that I really like to see, and it's a thing I would like to see more people do. That is to not focus too much on I'm making a fantasy story, so everything's going to be cookie cutter fantasy. No, fantasy, you can be in a, like recently I've been playing a lot of Deep Rock Galactic for those who don't know, it's a game about dwarfs in space mining and killing giant bugs with machine guns and shotguns and such. It's by all means a futuristic setting. It's sci-fi fully, but you're a dwarf. Immediately adds an element of fantasy that just enriches it so much. Because fantasy just lets you, it just gives you an excuse and just a absolutely, it gives you deniability to just break any rule.
Yeah, or even like the really old school sci-fi where they're like not even trying to be accurate. Like
that too. Like and yeah, that's not a thing that you can only do with fantasy. That's something that you can do with genre across the board. You can have a story about anything, and just adding certain elements turns it into sci-fi. That's really what Blade Runner is. It's not a story about sci-fi. It's a story, to give an example, it's a story about mystery and intrigue but it's in a setting that just often enough reminds you that the setting is just more.
Yeah.
And it gives you the ability to just make more.
Yeah. It's super weird to think Blade Runner's technically in the past now. Didn't it took place in 2020, right? Or was it 2019?
Yeah. I think the first one is, I think when the first is passed, I would have to look it up though. I don't remember.
Because I remember we watched it in class when I was taking like a sci-fi rating class as just like an elective in college. And we watched it in class and I was like, hey, that's like a year from now.
Jesus.
I mean, the world is kind of a dystopia right now, so they got that part right.
It checks out. It checks out.
It checks out. It's accurate enough.
Yeah.
So
Just wish we had flying cars already, but it's you take what you can get.
yeah, where's my hoverboard?
Yeah, like the ones that actually hover.
So next, let's talk about I feel like you kind of talked about it a little, but we didn't talk about it specifically. Like, what's your writing process?
Oh, my writing, it's complicated. It's it's well, let's speak cold facts. All right. So, I have in the beginning, what I had was when I started building the story. It was, since I didn't know what it was going to be like. Everyone starts their story from a different point, and for me, it started from visual guides. I remember I made a sketch, which you can see in Patreon, Patreon/RAGEmastah, and
Nice.
it's and that little sketch is just like a small pencil landscape with two silhouettes of two characters looking over a valley with an enormous creature walking through. And from there, I started just drawing more. Just thinking about that's how I come up with different cultures or groups of people. Is I draw one of them.
Mm.
And I drew, and eventually, when I had creatures and characters, I started sort of figuring out what the story was about. I made the characters. I sort of decided what I wanted them to do, and I really did my research, because it was the first story I was actually committing to write as a story. I was really careful. I really read up and listened to people talk about cinematography, writing, comic book writing, the difference between comic book writing, writing for cinema and writing for books and things like that, and sort of with that set a couple of goals. I figured out how my characters would start. I figured out where they would get, and I figured out a couple things that had to happen in the middle, but nothing was related. So from there, I made one project file that was every big plot point that had to happen between the ones I already had. So it's like a timeline of just plot points. This happens, this happens, this happens, this happens, and so on. From there, I have a separate project file, which is individual stories of the brothers as characters, like their growth and like individual events that happen to them, and sort of like an outline of why all this is happening and what is happening to them when all these events take place. From there, I sort of start writing synapses of chapters, and not so each of my episodes is 1 in 10 of a chapter. So my chapter is divided in 10 episodes. What I will do is that I will write each chapter as a script separately, and by first writing a synopsis of it, and then sort of figuring out what they are saying, conversation, dialogue, scene, and all that, sort of as I go.
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of try to put all these three together. It's a thing of constantly referencing one back and forth between these three things: the script, the story of the brothers, and the story as a whole. Each of them has to serve the other two in some way. If a character says something in the script, it has to be something that I'm sure will work into their personal story and into the main story. And the same way around, if I wrote something in the script, I have to change my I had to change the personal story accordingly because it's not like because they are all plot points. They sort of develop detail as I write the chapter to chapter. It's very back and forth and very hectic and overly complicated, and I wish I knew a different way to do it, but I don't because I'm a noob and that's just the way I do it. So hey, it's working. So
Yeah, as long as it gets done, yeah.
Yeah, as long as it gets done, as look, yes,
Yeah.
in a nutshell, yes.
In a nutshell.
Yes. How do you write? Yes.
How do you write? I go to bed, I wake up, and it's done. I don't question it.
Question the process, but you didn't say that the process is absolute and you don't question it, don't look at it. Turn around, walk away.
There are some types of writers like that. Oh my gosh. Like, I wanted to get into animation, so I read a lot of books about, like, Pixar and Disney writing and stuff. And they always say, like, weird phrases, like, follow the process, trust the process, believe in the process. Just like...
That is such a lot of crap.
Yeah.
Because that's what I tell everyone, and like from hearing so many people, so many icons of so many pillars of pop culture talk about these topics, I've come to realize that if it works, it works.
Yeah, if it works,
If it works for you, it works for you. And if you can make it better, great. If not, hey, it's still working.
Yep. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's all that bullshit about, all that stuff about the process is absolute and there's a way to do it. It's a load of hot, steamy, bad whatever thing.
Or I have like a bunch of those books, like, because I took screenwriting as like an elective a bunch in college. So like, those are actually definitely the classes that I got the most out of in college, but that's another story. But we had to buy a bunch of these like screenwriting books, and you open them up and they tell you like exactly on what page and what minute of your script should a certain thing, like the rising action before the final climax should happen on page 92, which should write out to like about 92 minutes in your feature film.
Oh yeah.
Your first act should last exactly 33.3 minutes, and if it doesn't, the world will explode. You know?
No. I mean, to say that the process is, to say that all this stuff is garbo, yes. I mean, I do believe it is, but let's not also, please, I don't want anyone to misunderstand. There are things that are tested and that work, and there is research on why they work, and you should take note of them, and you should consider them. But there are no certain set of rules that you have to follow. It has been proven time and time again that if you're good enough, if you really if you put the effort, you can flip a trope on its head and make it just the most stunning piece of work.
Yeah, it's all about execution.
Yeah, it's all about execution. Yes, they are there. Again, there are things that work, and by all means, using them is not bad. I myself, I'm relying a lot on the classical hero's journey, but I'm trying to put my own spin on it. I'm basing it off of a true tested method. But you can't just you can't take them as law. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Be flexible, but be open to other stuff, especially if it's not going well. I find that sometimes people that it's not going well for can be like more stubborn too, which is kind of strange. But
oh yeah,
yep.
Oh yeah.
Be open, but
yes,
don't be open. Be both.
But also know that. If just because something doesn't seem to work immediately, doesn't mean you have to give up. If you personally know that this is the way it has to be for you, and that you're doing it the way you want to do it and all that, by all means, keep trying.
Yeah, you can kind of feel it too, like the interviews. When I posted my first interview, even though they're doing pretty well on YouTube, I had several people comment or DM me and they're like, no one's gonna want to watch this long stuff. You should have chopped it up into like 20 minutes. And I'm like, no, this is it. This is it, fam.
Yeah, no.
People want to listen.
There are, see, that is such a dumb, that's such a dumb piece of feedback, because there's so many people like do you think people don't watch the Lord of the Rings? If it's good, it doesn't matter if it's of a length that you don't particularly approve of or you don't like. There are people that will still, consume it. I've watched all 3 movies of the Lord of the Rings, and it took me 9 hours, and I freaking loved it.
Yeah, I think that goes for comics too. Like,
yeah.
I've noticed it can be kind of slow if your story is a little bit slower to start out on too, in like gaining traction. But like, I've noticed overall that even though my journey is going a little bit slower than some other people's journeys, I'm getting like a very, very strong reaction. So I feel like I'm onto something. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'll give up by the time I put out this interview. That would be embarrassing. No, I'm not going to give up. But I believe.
I mean, you have to. I always tell people that I'm not good at this internet thing. I'm terrible. I'm terrible at it. I have the worst luck for it. And just remember that it took me a year and a half to get somewhere, and I got somewhere because I had a moment of luck. After a year and a half, so like if 3 months is you're ready to give up after 3 months, I'm gonna call you weak. Yeah.
Yeah, or like maybe it's just not the thing. Like if you're getting writer's block and you're only a couple months in, maybe it's just not the story. Because I haven't had it once for this, and I've been going almost a year now. I'll hit a year in early April.
Yep. It's definitely for anything really. People that really expect. It's a hoping for quick results. It's a thing, but expecting them, it's you're doing it wrong, bud. You're doing it very wrong.
Yeah. Yep. That's something I want to change about like the Webtoon YouTuber community, because like there is not like a big Webtoon YouTube community right now, which is part of why I think my channel is doing so well. But what I've noticed from a lot of other people's videos is they act like it's so easy to get a fan base and get popular on Webtoon, and it really isn't. And they almost phrase it like you should expect, like, oh, if you don't have like 1,000 subs within the first like 3 episodes, just throw it all away.
Oh no, screw those people. Because let's be honest. First off, those people ain't never gonna get anything. Any of the stuff they talk about there is just they're just not cut out for it, obviously. But if you want to be absolutely real. Yes, you can get a big following fast if you do the cookie cutter stuff that everyone wants to see, and you sell your soul, and you don't do what you want, you do what everyone else wants from you, and you do it in the way that people want. And if you do that in the most tropey way possible, you maybe get a quick following, but you won't get anywhere. It won't get you anywhere, which is the thing that I sometimes wrestle with, the idea that I could be making a lot of money if I was drawing, but not doing what I want.
I don't know about that though, because like I've been thinking about this a lot too. I think if you did something and you purposefully tried to appeal to the Webtoon audience, which is like, let's be real here, like 14 to 16-year-old girls. Like,
yeah.
those aren't the type of people who are gonna give on like Patreon or like buy merch. And like,
Oh, well, no.
yeah,
No, not at all.
I think it would be better to get like, I think the type of audience you have really matters even more than the quality to a certain extent.
I mean, yeah, like I said, if you do the things that people want you to, it will get you somewhere fast, but you won't grow past it. But I've seen some dirty tactics out here
Oh,
in my couple of years here. Like there was this one webtoon that I loathed. I don't remember the name. It was poorly drawn, had no story. The characters were recycled from someone else, and it was basically a big ad for the lewd version of that webtoon on their Patreon, and they had a ton of patrons. Like they had a ton of patrons.
that's how you get them.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Like if you really want to make money, like there are ways, but you will never grow past it. As soon as you try to deviate into something else, you will face backlash, push back. I don't feel like it's worth it, really. So
Yeah.
to all those money-hungry boys out there, boys and gals, don't fall for the easy way.
The temptation.
Yes. Don't let yourself be led, bitch.
Or like even like because like the recommendation you get a lot when people are like, oh, how do I grow my following online, is to do like fan art. You'll see people too who do fan art, and then the moment they want to move away from fan art, like nobody cares.
Yep.
It's a lot of work to build up your own audience that actually cares about what you want to do, but it's worth it.
Exactly. I feel like a problem with that is that a lot of people tell you, yeah, you have to do this, but they're not really telling you what you have to do. Because yes, fan art can help if you know how to work it. If you know how to make it work, it will help. You know, if you know, for example, if you know your hashtags, if you know to reach out to certain people, if you know to post it in certain places, it can help you. But if you just have an account and don't talk to anyone and just occasionally post and don't do anything else other than fan art, you probably won't get far. You know.
Yeah. So we got really off topic, but
yes, we did.
I want to hear like a little bit more specifically about world building. Again, you talked about it a little bit, but let's just give it its own little moment to shine.
Right. Well, it's complicated. No, it's a little less complicated actually than writing as a whole. For me, I try to build a story by posing myself questions. For example, if I can figure out who my character is, and I can figure out, let's say that I have my entire character figured out, I have to start asking myself questions. For example, when I started, I had my beginning and my end, but the end was kind of muddy. The end could go several different ways depending on what happened along the way. But I had to figure it out in order for this to in order for the end to go roughly the way I wanted, for the characters to end up a certain way, from the way they started. What has to happen? What would be a fun way to have this happen, or how do I make it happen? And from there, I'll pose myself a couple of possible scenarios, and I try to go, okay, what happens for this to happen? What would happen? And in that play of what happens here and there, the world starts to sort of come alive on its own, because because culture, countries, things, places don't just exist. Everything has a story behind it and how it ended in a certain place, and it has a reason why it's the way that it is. historical buildings have reason and motive and history behind them. And as you answer yourself questions about the world, you start to sort of give everything a just like a brief backstory. And when you do that, you have to keep in mind, sort of think of it as if you were traveling through a world. Remember that different places geographically will cause different types of town, different types of business, focuses on different fields of work, like mining, maybe if you're in a mountain city, or farming if you're in grasslands, or things like that. And how does that mold the people on it? How would the weather work if they are doing this kind of work? Let's say, are they mining in this mountain, but maybe there's always storms all the time, and that's why it's called this. And because it's always raining, the caves always flood. So it's always people dying. So now everyone in this town is suddenly bitter, old, hardened. And then you sort of try to give an aesthetic to it. Yes. You can start, or even you can even build it backwards. You can come up with an aesthetic. And from that aesthetic, you sort of figure out, okay, so for this look, maybe this type of people live here. Maybe everything is rich in this town. Maybe everything is covered in precious jewels and metals, and everything is beautiful. Okay, very snobby people would live here. Very unlikable, very cheap people would probably live here to have such wealth. So I'm gonna go with that. Okay, so but why are they like this? How did they get all the jewels and money? And as I figured out, their surroundings, what they do. And once you have all these different places, you can sort of start to build relationship between each of them. Like, okay, if these people are bitter and smell bad and mine, they have to sell their jewels and precious metals and whatever. And these people here are very stingy, and they like precious metals and jewels, and they are very snobby. So they probably have a working relationship, but they don't like each other. They really don't like each other. One group is snobby, the other one is really bitter. So they don't like each other, but they trade. All right, so that's their relationship. How would that affect their surroundings? Do they have conflicts because of that? It's sort of posing questions, like coming up with a small thing and questioning why, how. It sort of builds itself. It creates itself, and it can be really fun too when you get in that groove.
Yeah, my world building process is pretty similar, and I could definitely feel some of that video game improv skills in there. Like I haven't done a lot of world building in my actual series, but I do play a lot of strategy games in particular. Like I play Crusader Kings, and I play a lot of tactics games that are set medieval, like demons, like Disgaea or whatever. I could definitely feel all right, so this duchy has to go there, and it's surrounded by these. So these people grew up here because this area has a lot of wealth. It's a very powerful duchy. But then this must have happened. I could go on and on, but I won't because I will spoil things.
And just like that, just going on and on and on, and you can end up with very lore, deep, rich settings, and it's just maybe the most fun part of all of it.
Yeah, just asking questions like we're doing here in the interview.
Yeah.
Now let's move on to talking a little bit more about your art. I really want to hear about how you do your designs, because to me, just the way you do designs, all of your characters feel distinct. There's not that super cookie cutter-ish vibe that a lot of comics give up, where all of the characters are just slightly recolored versions of the other characters.
Oh yeah.
I want to hear about your design, yeah.
Funny enough, I don't mind when other people do it, but I could not live with myself if I did.
Mm.
And I don't know exactly why that would be, but when I was planning out Skylark, I had never actually put any thought into character design. Like I drew, and if something looked cool, I would go that way. Like it just was very sporadic, and I never really thought about it. But when at first, as soon as I decided that I was gonna work on an actual project, I really I really thought about it. Like I did my homework. Like I listened to countless people talk about it. I saw countless people do it. I heard and read and watched again and again and again, and I tried my best to implement as many of the techniques because I knew that character design was going to be like not just the first thing that people look at, but could be the deal breaker for those first viewers. So I really focused on a lot of people talk about the principle of the silhouette, that if a character has a recognizable silhouette, it's a recognizable character. You know, it is a good character if it it has a silhouette that is easily recognizable. And when you look at the examples and you look at people talk about it, yes, they talk about it, but again, I feel like it's one of these things that there's a detail I feel they are really not mentioning that I feel like it's crucial.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of characters that have quote unquote recognizable silhouettes from the angle they were originally drawn.
Oh.
So I started from there. Like I have to come up with designs that from almost any angle you can tell who they are by the silhouette.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about. But for people who might not get it, like when you're drawing a comic, you have to sort of be able to like rotate the character in your head.
Yeah.
And a lot of designs, especially for beginners, they'll just focus on the front angle. And then when you get to the profile shots, like the characters get kind of like mushy. Like, yeah, that's something you can encounter when you're working on designs, which is part of why I like doing turnarounds.
So not only did I look into, okay, so first they need to have a recognizable silhouette. So I did a couple sketches, worked on some helmets, and then I thought, okay, now every character I'm gonna also work on from the angle of a few other techniques that I've heard. For example, the one about basic shapes, the feeling that certain shapes, predominant shapes in characters can give off a certain feeling. Basically, I try to sort of think about that. Think, okay, I want to think about shape and the silhouette, not so the silhouette and the shape. Okay, try to combine them to give off not just a very recognizable image, but like sort of let you see something about this character, like about them, just from looking at their shape. And I sort of started working on that and sort of trying to mix that with with a little bit of world building. Like, okay, so I have shapes, I have silhouettes. I want to also make them thematic. So even though characters may look different, you can tell they have things in common, or you can tell they maybe belong to the same place. And sort of, it's a slow process. It's a lot slower than just winging it, which is a thing I love to do, but I feel like in the long run it could bring me issues, trouble. I don't know.
Yeah, it saves you so much time. Like I didn't do character designs until like actual turnaround sheets until like 20 episodes in, and it just makes things easier because all of my questions are answered. And if I want to have someone base color, it's very easy for them to just check the sheet instead of like guessing from screenshots. It saves you so much time.
Yep. Even though I've sent twice I've sent my stuff to colorists to colorists twice with color palettes, and I never used them, and I don't know why. And yeah. But yes, speaking of color, I also put a lot of thought into that. A lot of and accidentally it turned out that I will forever and always get comments about Happy Souls, but I swear to God that was not intentional. It just so happens that there is a reason why most heroes dress in primary colors, and there's a reason why most villains dress in mixed colors.
Oh.
Like
I didn't even notice that until you pointed it out. Yeah, they
yeah,
do have secondary colors a lot.
Yes, even Batman sometimes his suit tends to be blue a lot of the time. Superman, blue, red. Wonder Woman, blue, red, yellow. Spider-Man, blue, red. Captain America, blue, red. Iron Man, red, yellow. But think about the villains: the Joker, purple, green. Lex Luthor, green. The Lizard, purple and green. His pants are purple. That's right, they are. And so on and so on. I could go on and on. Like, it's not a rule, but it's most often the case, and there's a reason for it. It has a psychological effect in the way you look at them at first glance. It really does. And thinking about that, and thinking about, I based some of the personality of the brothers in myself and my brother. It just so happens that I like red and he likes blue, and hey, it sort of happened. Plus, I think they look pretty nice in those. And I also try to put an extra something. I really, color is a thing I always wanted to have, and I never really wanted to get rid of. It doesn't matter if I had to get rid of shading for a while because I didn't have the time. Color, it really mattered because you can tell so much with color.
Yeah.
Like, you will notice eventually, like up to now, no one outside the island my main characters come from either wears red or blue. And no one has colors as bright as them, except for Ryoha, and her brightest color is in her hair. So it's not necessarily the clothes. And she wears green, not a primary color. And I don't know, I just feel like there's so much that you can do with color. But basically, yeah, it was just a lot of thought put into character design.
Yeah. And when I look at your color too, like, I mean, the colors you picked too, like the first thing I thought when I was looking at them is it reminds me a lot of like the older like Final Fantasy art, almost the color palette you picked. I don't know why, but it just gives me those kind of like vibes, like you know, like the old like mage, how they have like the black mage, the white mage with like the eyes hidden. Yeah.
Yes. Well, the whole thing about the eyes is funny. There was also a lot of there was a long thought process for what happened with the helmets. It started with I saw a drawing. Crap, I don't remember his name. I'm really bad with names, but there's an artist that recreates his kids' drawings as anime.
And the YouTube videos.
I think he also has the videos about it.
Yeah, I don't know who that is, but I know who you're talking about.
I saw a drawing of his of these two knights, wearing very sort of similar in style, but very different in theme. Armors with different weapons and all that. And for some reason, out of the entirety of the knights, the one thing that caught my attention was the visors of the helmets and how the way you could see the eyes underneath. And the image just sort of stuck in my head. And when I was designing the characters, I couldn't settle with faces. I felt like there was something about giving them a face that, first of all, I didn't want to draw their faces because at that point I had very little practice with drawing the same face again and again, meaning I couldn't do it. So I thought I had seen and read and heard about this thing where a lot of characters in video games and sometimes in other media won't show their face, and sometimes in roleplay games won't have a voice because it's easier to associate with something where you can place yourself in their stead, and it's easier to do that if there is something missing for you to replace.
Yeah.
So if they don't have a face, simply because you can't see them, it's easier to picture yourself as them because you can subconsciously put your face in theirs. So going with that idea, I sort of combined that with this image I had stuck of these two knights in my head, and it just sort of I started doodling helmets until I had a pair that I really liked.
Oh, another really interesting thing I noticed about like your comic coloring is you do like a cool thing where you'll like have sections with like flat blacks in parts of the characters,
Yeah.
and it looks so cool. But I know a lot of people will tell you not to do that.
What? Why?
Because have you ever seen like one of those videos on YouTube and they're like 5 tips to drawing better, and you're like, never shade with black. That's always one of the tips, you know?
That is garbage. Anyone who tells you that doesn't know what they're talking about, right? Because first of all, I'm a fan of dramatic lighting. I use it to set up the mood. I use it for impact. I use it as punchline sometimes. And it's just such a mood set. It just you can use it in such inventive ways, and a lot of people do it. And my personal hero, Mike Mignola, for those who don't know, creator, writer, and the artist that made Hellboy.
Yes.
He said that the way he learned to ink and shade was by looking at paintings from Frank Frazetta, another great, fantastic artist, legend, and do them in black and white. Just anything that was below a certain threshold of dark would be completely black. And it really does help you understand shape a lot better when you understand and composition, because learning not only it doesn't help not only to learn about shapes, but also about just the composition of a character. What matters, what doesn't matter, what do you need to show, what's the minimum you need to show of a thing, so that so that it works.
Yes, exactly. I actually he came to like an event that was held at my university like a year or two ago, probably like 2 years ago, and I actually got to see him talk, and it was so exciting.
Oh my god.
Yeah. It was in like a giant auditorium, and I took notes, and it was great. It was great.
God, I'm so jealous. I've never gotten to go to a convention. I
totally lucked out because I don't get to go to conventions that often either, because they're like, well, one, there's no conventions right now because but like because of the great calamity. But like two, they're pretty expensive. Like a lot of the ones that I've gone to, it's like you got to pay $50 to go, and you can't even go into the artist alley to go buy things unless you have a pass, which I think is kind of dumb because you have to pay money to go buy things.
Jesus, why? Well,
yeah, I don't know why, because that's one of my favorite things. I love going to the artist alley, but then I can't buy that much because I spent all of my money trying to get into the artist alley.
Oh god. Yeah, that's the one thing I've heard a lot of people tell me. Hey, if you ever go to one, you need to have a lot of money on you.
Yeah.
Because goddamn.
Or even like the Frank Frazetta. He is such like a fun artist to study, or like Bridgman, like when you're doing anatomy, like people from that era.
Well, absolutely.
Because everything's just so clear. They draw so well, and everything feels so well defined. It's great to study. Great.
And not just that, there is like a play of the proportions and the exaggeration of certain poses that it's like it's not just refreshing for now, but it really helps you understand certain things. Like there are certain ways in which arms and legs and torsos can move that you don't really notice until you see someone exaggerate them like that.
Next, I want to talk about, so you have been working on it since July 4th, 2018, and I wanted to talk about how your comic art has changed over time. Do you think you could talk about that?
I mean, well, a lot has changed. I mean, this again being my first comic, I had to change constantly the way I was doing things, the way I went about things, from the way I write to the way I plan my drawings, and the way I actually draw has changed too. I feel like, you know, from this amount of experience and experimentation, I've gotten a lot better and faster. But not only that, it's really great for understanding what really is important in this kind of work, in this kind of story. And I mean, aside from just going, I've also, you know, gone through to post bi-weekly to weekly to bi-weekly again to not posting at all to bi-weekly again to weekly again, just constant roller coaster until I finally sort of found a pace that works for me. And not just that, but from then to now, I'm just almost ready to call it a full-time job. It was born, and it is currently in its adolescence. So we'll see what happens with that.
We'll see. Maybe 2021 will be a good year to you.
Maybe. It started pretty great, I gotta say.
Yeah. Nothing's exploded yet. That's always a good sign.
Yes. No explosions. No red seas. So that's good.
Yeah.
No rivers of blood. That's good
rivers
too.
Of blood. Check. Maybe in the comic though. Maybe I'll have to add that to my personal list. Just casually at the river of blood, you know, just chilling, as one does.
What is that? Oh, that's the blood river. Don't mind it.
Don't mind it. Nobody talks about that, and you don't bring it up. Don't bring it up.
Yeah.
So, like, that's something I kind of wanted to talk about too, because I'm particularly interested in that. Do you have like advice? And we're sort of switching over to the advice section, but do you have like advice for people who are working towards having their comic be more of a job?
Well, yes, I do.
Yes.
Yes, I do. And see, first of all, people, and this is for everyone out there, you have to do your homework. It's okay to want to do something, and it's okay to do something, but you really have to understand what you're doing. You need to know what you are doing, and not make the mistakes I made for not knowing what I was doing, which were a lot. Like maybe I shouldn't have quit my job so soon because things went bad. See, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, and I should have. And just like that, not only know what you're doing, but know how to do it. And by that I mean, if there's a thing that I call, I'm pretty sure this is a term already, and I'm pretty sure it's not a term for this, but there's a thing that I call my min-maxing, which is I try to find every angle that I can work. Like, so from my project, I try to find every angle from which I can get something out of. For example, I stream 3 times a day, three times a day, 3 times a week.
3 times a day.
Yeah, and when I stream my entire workday. I stream between 5 and 6.5 hours, 3 times a week. And I can get, sometimes I will get subs, I will get donations, I will get things from there. I will even get new readers from there sometimes.
And it's just stuff you're already doing.
and that is just me working on my webtoon, right?
Mm.
Or I'm working on the webtoon, and I make new designs for something, or within my small community something becomes a meme. I make that a T-shirt. Bam! I'd rather goof. My bestseller. I think it will always be. It is unrivaled by anything else I've ever sold anywhere. Like, just try to find the angle. Yes, you can have Patreon. That's one place you can get income from. Yes, after a certain point, you can have ad revenue and artist stimulus, whatever, from Webtoon. That's another source of income. Store, another source of income. A stream, another source of income. YouTube, if you can get like this beautiful person right here and work on YouTube while you work on other stuff, that is another potential source of income, and newer readers and more people. And see, try to find every possible workable angle within what you're already doing. As long as you keep yourself centered around that thing,
Mm-hmm.
just find what you can manage and try to expand there. And don't be afraid to put yourself out there. That is something I am always very afraid of. I don't like talking much about my work. I don't. I absolutely don't. It makes me feel weird. I don't like it. As soon as I told people on my webtoon that if they didn't give me money, there would be no webtoon. I doubled my amount of patrons.
Mm.
If you don't tell people that there is a place where they can support your work, they won't support your work. If you don't tell people that you need to make an income, people won't feel the need to help you. And sometimes just, I don't know, just get out there. For example, I created my Patreon way too early. I heard countless people say that you shouldn't do it until you have a solid following. I didn't listen, so I did. Like a month or two early, I got my first patron, who's still there, William Conroy. I see you, man. You quiet bastard who never says anything. You've been there for so long, and I love you.
That's a proper shout out.
Yes. But small things like that, take every small win you can, because it's a morale boost that you will need. Yeah, don't also be quiet about this stuff. Try to find people to help yourself with, find people to work with. Maybe not in the same project, but I have a fantastic friend who goes by Sarah Sunda Illustrations. I see you, girl. Who often helps me with my store, with business stuff. We always just chat and play games while we talk about work. We bounce ideas out of each other. The more you can integrate this stuff in your normal life, even though it might in the long run maybe be a little bit toxic for yourself, you have to find what works for you. And you can't find it, you don't go out there and look for something that works. Anything that works.
I'm not as far in as you, but I can definitely agree with some of the stuff like batching things. People ask me how I post so often on Instagram. I just post comic panels that I'm going to draw anyway. And I just do reels of the exact same panels I'm already posting, and I know not everyone's going to see every post I make, so it's not a big deal. Or like YouTube, the video is usually something I'm going to draw anyway. I guess the interviews I learn so much on personally, so I consider that, like, even if the video doesn't do well, I consider that a good use of time. My Patreon, I just started, but like for the rewards that I give, I try to make them related to stuff I'm going to do anyway, and there are a couple that aren't, but I'm going to also use them for other things eventually. So you just want to try to have everything kind of overlap.
Exactly, and like try not to overcomplicate yourself, because it gets to a point where if you have too many things to do. Even if they all relate to the same thing, it's still too much.
Yeah.
Like you will start losing track of time. You will start missing deadlines and update days, and it'll just become a mess. So like, yes, find all the angles and stuff, but like make it work for you. You shouldn't work for it. So it's gotta find a balance. It's difficult.
Another thing that I was interested in hearing more on, because I see you do, and you can talk about this however much you want, or we could skip it. But like,
Cool.
I'm really interested in starting to get into merch, but I have no idea where to start. Could you give everyone like a little information of how you recommend starting that?
That is a theme and a half. I still don't have it completely down, but I can, sort of talk to everyone about where I'm at. So first thing you would actually would help you, if you know someone who's already done this stuff, have a chat with them, because it'll help. But things that you want to do on your own are look up first, Google is your friend, look up print-on-demand services. Look at all of them, watch reviews of the products. This is very important, because I used two print-on-demand services before the one I have now. And luckily, back then I didn't sell much, because what little I sold, what the messages I got about them were terrible and made me feel like trash. Because the quality was just not up to par. And yes, inform yourself. You got to start from the base. So first, if you want to sell a product, you need a place that makes the product. If it's print on demand, that's easy, because print on demand websites have it set up so that you can easily link them to a store if they don't have a store already. So basically the entire thing of making the order, packaging it, sending it, taken care of. Just make sure to see the rates, make sure you understand how they work, and make sure you watch the reviews. From there, look if they work on their own or if they work with a third party. A lot of places, like I use, this is not an ad, this is not a sponsor, I use Printful. And Printful works by linking it to a storefront. The storefront takes in the orders, sends all the information to Printful. Printful takes the money from you to make the products and send it. And then the storefront gives you the money of the sales. So that is the way I'm currently doing it. And it's not, in a way, it's not ideal. It's you have to be conscious that they will take money from you to make the order, and you will get the money back afterwards. I had a moment in which my store was doing really well, and I was afraid because I had very low funds on my credit card. On my debit card, I'm sorry. And that would have been a problem. Luckily, it wasn't. So that's a thing to be careful of. Honestly, though, I feel like the best way to have a store is a website. Have your own website. And yes, some might say it costs money, but a storefront will still take a cut of the profits. So it will get to a point where it's taking a lot more money. If your store does well, it will take a lot more money than having a website would. So in the long run, it might be an investment.
Yeah, like the percentages will really add up as you start to get more income.
So basically, when it comes to your money, your income, your livelihood, you have to be careful and really look into this stuff. And if you can, find someone to talk about this with. Do not harass someone you don't know. Let me stress that first. Do not randomly message people about how their store works, because no one's gonna like that. If you know someone, you can ask them. But yeah, don't just Go around messaging, and certainly don't message me about it, because I'd rather not talk about it.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That's too much. That's too much information that I don't have.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because sometimes people want to ask questions after I make a YouTube video, and I'm just like,
And I will say it now. If you ask me, my response, regardless of how you identify, will be, I don't know, man.
I'll just show up, wake
That will
up,
be
and
my
it's done.
response. Yeah. I just wake up when it's done. I don't question the process.
Don't question the process, especially when it comes to your source of revenue. Don't question anything.
Yes, do not question it.
Oh, but that was really helpful. Thank you.
Oh, you are very welcome.
So now we are on our final section. It's been a long time. It's been a great time. It's been a wonderful time. But we're on our final one. And I like to ask as my final question, I don't know why, I just like to. Do you have any life advice? It could be about anything. It could be about art. It could just be about being a person who exists in the world. It could be about like, I don't know, clouds, whatever. Life advice.
God. Oh, there's so much that I could say. I mean, for one, don't drive a car without a license.
Don't do it, kids.
Most definitely don't crash that car without a driver's license. And
Definitely don't do it.
If you do, just panic as loudly as possible and hope that the person will overlook it.
No one will notice.
Trust me, no one wants to deal with that. Just throw shit on the ground, drop on your knees, scream. Just trust me, it'll help. Okay, so after that, don't take candy from strangers.
That's a good one. That's always a good one.
And just in general, be aware of the law, kids. Especially immigration law. That one's complicated. And just do what you want with your life, and don't be dumb like me.
What a mood.
Just whatever situation you get yourself in, just know what you're getting yourself in. And just in life, just anything you get yourself in, make it work. You can't don't just hope things will work, make it work. There's no point in getting what you want if it kills you. So
yeah, you gotta play the hands you're dealt.
Yep.
Okay. On that note, I think we're gonna end the interview. Shout yourself out. Tell everyone where to find you.
If you Google RAGEmastah, that's with an A and an H at the end, you should be able to find me. If you look up my Webtoon, Skylark, on Webtoon, and give it a read, that would make me extremely happy, and you have no idea the crazy things I do when I'm happy.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Comment Rochella sent you. Let us all know.
So, also, I have a Patreon. I have Instagram, I have Twitter. By my name, you can find me everywhere. And I thank you for the opportunity to talk to the peeps. Aww. And to yourself. It's been a wonderful time.
Yeah, this is great.
And here's a drink of water to new internet friends.
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers. Don't drink alcohol.
Yeah. Definitely don't. If you're a minor, don't do that. Not suggested.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, really quickly, I'm Rochella. If you haven't already noticed, I have more interviews like this on my channel. I also post stuff about my own webtoon and just talking about art and stuff. You can check out my series, That Which Is My Sister, on Webtoon Canvas, and you can find me on social media by searching my name. Bye, everyone!
Bye. Goodbye.
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 See you in 2022. No. This is gonna be a good year. You'll see me again soon. Bye.
All right.